the stage, and you've got to do your revelation. Liz has been nervous about this. You've got to...
I don't really have anything very important. I don't think a lot of people know that I started actually as a market researcher, even though I'm not one now. And my first job was working for IBM, looking at whether we should go into the PC market or not, which rather suggests how old I am.
And Caroline's got one that probably gets a round of applause.
Yeah,
so.
my one's a bit more personal, so today is actually my birthday, so that's my revelation. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, we're here today, and we're really excited to be here because a couple of years ago, myself and Liz were in an auditorium very much like being here, this time in London at the MRS conference, and we were having a conversation about the state of careers in our industry, and we built some hypotheses around, we felt kind of the industry weren't doing enough to attract new talent to the industry. We felt frustrated that people were leaving the industry too soon, and kind of some of the echoes of the previous session that we've just been listening to. And so, particularly from my perspective, being a bit of a researcher geek, I thought, well, I'm not just going to sit there and have a conversation with Liz. I want to do something about this, and I really want to quantify and understand whether that's actually the case. So we had numerous conversations with the likes of Esomar, and Finn's been incredibly supportive to this project, but also with Jane Frost at the MRS. So we've been able to do a programme of research over the last couple of years, both in terms of doing a quant survey with Esomar membership and also with the MRS, but also having lots of one-on-one conversations, doing mini deliberative events with the likes of ARNET in the UK, with Aura, with the Insight Management Academy, and also with a lot of the Esomar events as well. So we've really got a very good picture of what the industry thinks about careers in the industry and what they think needs to be done next. And this session is really all about what needs to happen now. We think we're very clear on answering the research question, which is there's a challenge out there. So what we want to share with you this morning is 4 key insights that we've uncovered through this programme of research. So the first one is around attraction. So how can we attract more talent to the industry? How can we do better at conveying our story? The second is around outreach. So how can we get that story out there to more people? The third is around access, so how can we think about getting people into the industry even younger than kind of universities? And then the fourth is around support and around mentoring and how we can more support each other but more effectively to help people's careers develop within the industry. So just on that first point in terms of attraction, one of the things that we really strongly uncovered in the research project was the sense that everybody really loved their jobs, really, really high scores, no matter which market we did the research in, all 5 continents, people consistently said they really, really loved the role that they do, and they get a lot of personal satisfaction out of it. The challenge is that's almost like, I describe it as a kind of private party going on. So everybody here in the audience is probably really loving what they're doing, getting huge amounts of job satisfaction in the roles that they do. The challenge is that party and that sense of positivity isn't conveying to the rest of the world or the potential pool of talent. So we're really keeping that story quite private, and that's not great in terms of attracting new talent. And one of the most startling statistics from the project was that overall we've got 64% of people claiming to fall into the industry. So it's not an active choice for people. It kind of happens by happy accident. Oh, hello.
Hi. Is this by magic? How's it going? So before we talk about how we get people to actively choose a career in research, I really think it's worth reflecting on the type of people we're trying to have that conversation with. And happy birthday, by the way, Caroline.
Thank you.
So I'm Matt from Twitter. I wanted to give our view of what we see going on and some of the challenges that we face in attracting talent to work in research with us. So I think the simple story is that we're trying to get new people into our industry. I think this is a challenge that everybody in this room faces. And the reason for that is actually really simple. There was a fantastic piece of research done recently by an organisation called the Green Book. Now, some of you might have seen it, but they asked client-side and agency-side researchers, what was the biggest challenge that faced the market research industry? And the answers I thought were absolutely fascinating. Because to agency-side researchers, the biggest problem was technology. To client-side researchers, it was basically just getting an answer to their question. So put this a different way, you have half the industry saying they're not really getting what they need out of the projects they're running, and the other half of the industry saying they're struggling to even do it because they can't adapt to technology quick enough. And it's that disconnect that's really at the heart of every presentation, every panel you'll see on big data, on analytics, call it what you want, over these few days. You know, the reality is that clients want to get answers to their questions faster, more effectively, and have those answers to be as relevant as possible. And that's really behind all of that investment in data. That's why they brought behavioural data in-house. That's why we're trying to understand what people are thinking and feeling and doing outside of the context of a survey. And in order to access that, and in order to actually drive meaning from that information, we need to bring new people in, we need new skills. And there are 3 problems that we often come up against that I wanted to just open this session by talking about. The first problem is just the reality of having to compete with different types of organisations for those skills. So in the past, we have a kind of traditional job description that we're looking for with a researcher. You know, we're looking for this brilliant blend of consumer and commercial curiosity, I always think of it. But at the end of those job descriptions now, you find these magical words popping up as well. SQL, Hadoop, Python. You know, these are things that are actually really difficult to interview for. You know, how many people in this room can legitimately give a technical interview on people's familiarity with a Hadoop environment? It's almost impossible. And yet, it's something that increasingly clients need as part of that skill set to come into a business. Now, problem number 2, once you get those people in and once you have those skills on board, how do you keep them engaged? You know, we have a phrase at Twitter that I shamelessly stole from one of my American colleagues, which is, we accidentally create these kind of insight black boxes across the team, where you hire a few technical experts to kind of plug a gap. We don't really fully understand the kind of opportunities and challenges that they face in their day-to-day role. You know, fine, we can hire a more junior technical analyst, say, and we can point them at a project, but unless we, as the kind of more experienced, perhaps more traditional researchers, embrace those skills, learn how to do that in a hands-on way, we can't really develop those people in the long term. We can give them new projects, we can point them into new teams, but ultimately, as per the question that came up in the previous session, we lose them because they'll go on and they'll be attracted to new different types of people, new different types of projects. And the third problem, I think, is one that faces everybody in industry. Part of the research that we're talking through today, it said very strongly, one of the main reasons why people stay engaged and passionate about a career in research is for the variety and innovation of the projects that they get to work on. But I'd argue that actually as an industry, we need to do a much better job at adapting to change, at adopting new techniques, and just embracing innovation in a different way. You know, to put it bluntly, we're an industry that took the best part of 10 years to figure out that online surveys were okay. We're still struggling a little bit with mobile. We still debate whether social media research is representative, but we don't really worry about what the kind of person is that will fill in a 25-minute questionnaire on a smartphone about a detergent for a £10 voucher. You know, to really understand and embrace innovation, that's what's going to give people the variety and the different types of projects that are going to keep them engaged long term. And that's really the kind of work that's going to keep these people with new skills engaged in the industry. So the message I'd give everybody in the room is to just think about how we can do things better. You know, we don't have to wait for permission to change something. We don't have to wait for permission to do something in a different way. But if we embrace innovation, if we adapt, if ourselves, we learn those skills that we're trying to attract into the industry, we can do a much better job at building the future of our industry in a way that's going to attract people and retain them in the long term. So that's my point.
Thank you very much, Matt. Would you like to come up to the stage so that people can ask you some questions? You're absolutely right. The survey did say that innovation and variety is one of the things that you love about your roles. But at the same time, one of the great frustrations is that we think the industry is a bit too reactive. We're not always fast enough to embrace those. And that's something that we need to do to make us a more attractive industry to work in. I'm also interested in your comments on skills. I mean, I think we have some fantastic skills, and we should be really proud of the skills that we've got, but you're absolutely right. Variety, change, means that we need more and more new skills. Over to you.
Thanks, Matt. So the next theme was around outreach. So there, just to remind you of that statistic that I talked about before Matt interrupted me, 64% of people have fallen into the industry. And actually it's even higher. So if we looked at that data in the States, it's 73% of people falling into the industry. So what's really clear is that people just don't get market research onto their radar when they're considering their career choices. So the idea of outreach and getting that positive story out there to students is hugely important. And although there's been a number of initiatives that have been taking place, both by Esomar and by the MRS in terms of outreach, we don't think it's really scalable enough at the moment in terms of reaching people and getting that message across. So luckily already in the UK with the MRS, they've committed to scale that programme. So in the past, I think they were visiting 14 universities. In this coming year, they're now committed to going to 100. So that's great. That's a massive step change. But we really need to do more. And a number, again, a kind of surprising statistic, we Googled the number of universities in the world to get the answer, and the number was 24,000 universities. So that's not even taking into consideration all the other academic institutions. So that number is a massive figure, 24,000.
Hello? It's working now. That's good. A huge figure. And we're not even really speaking to 1% of universities globally, if that's how many there are. It's really a drop in the ocean. My name's Chris. I'm representing the Fringe Factory. What we do is we try and attract and retain young talent into the industry. The best way, we think, is to actually speak to students, go to universities and actually tell them a little bit about consumer insights. But it's still a drop in the ocean. So we've had some really positive experiences over the last year or so and some great conversations with students. But it's still a very, very, very small slice of the pie in terms of the number of students out there. When you speak to students, you realise that there's very little understanding about the consumer insights industry. Anything that students think they know about insights, broadly speaking, tends to be a misconception often. So if they do have any kind of thoughts about what insights represents, it tends to be much more focused on a traditional, stereotypical view of market research. So what's the point of going to universities to actually speak to students? We see that when you actually have a conversation with students and say, this is what we do on a day-to-day basis, this is the kind of work we do, look at some case studies of how we've worked with brands, for example, to drive decision-making, there's actually interest in our industry amongst top-tier universities. So I think it's clearest when you get job applications where people have actually written in the covering letter, I am applying for this job because I want to get into the industry because I saw a talk and I learned about what research and insight actually is. We had a great example recently where Sarah, my Fringe Factory colleague who works at Skim, and Manish Makajani, who's now heading up Insight for South Asia for Unilever, and myself, we went down to the London School of Economics to do a talk about research and insight. And shortly after that, we needed a graduate position filled at Truth, my agency, and the biggest volume of applications came from the LSE, and covering letters saying, you know, I want to work here because I've seen a talk. And part of this preparation for today, I spoke to Manish, because he's been doing university visits for years and years and all over the world. I said, why do you do this? Why have you done this? And he said, if people think of it as giving up their time, they've got completely the wrong idea, because there are huge benefits. You can recruit top talent directly from the best universities in the world, and you'll get a fresh perspective. Students, because they don't know anything about our industry, they've got a brilliant way of challenging some of the kind of preconceptions and assumptions that we've got. And as he puts it, this is the absolutely crucial thing to do If we don't engage with universities, more universities, we're going to be having the same conversation in a few years' time. We've been having this conversation ever since I've been coming to Congress 5 years in a row. Like, we need to do more. So I urge you, everybody, to visit the Researching a Career stand downstairs and sign up and commit to do at least one university visit in the next 12 months.
Thank you so much, Chris. And as he says, the resources of people like Esomar, MRS, the local country organisations are limited. The only way we're going to have any chance of reaching even a small percentage of 24,000 universities is if we get every single person in this room to go back and visit their old university. And we'd love to encourage you to do that. For me, it's not just about attracting students into our industry, but also it's giving us a chance to talk to the business people of the future and telling them what a wonderful industry we are. So Chris has come up to the stage. Feel free to ask him questions if you think you'd like to go and do a university visit at the end.
Okay, so third theme that we uncovered with the project was around access to the industry. So Chris has really kindly spoken about universities, but also there's an opportunity potentially to engage school leavers. So what we found was a lot of the graduates that are entering the industry get a little bit disillusioned, finding some of the tasks that they're set are a little bit monotonous, a little bit not quite as glamorous as they might have been expecting, those kind of core skills and really understanding them in detail. Whereas what we've discovered is if you engage people at a younger age, bring them in earlier. Oh, someone else there. Hello.
There's a theme going on here. It's okay. I'm Emily Kettle. I'm from Fax International and just wanted to talk to you about our experiences of getting school leavers into our business. So our situation is really that actually we have good retention, which is a good thing, I recognise. But with many of our staff being with us for over 20 years, so as an example, 2 of our script writers, for example, have been with the business since we started, almost 30 years ago now. So we need to be able to future-proof those skills. They're really valuable, but how do we get those on to the next generation? Also, we have a challenge also with recruiting people, and we compete with London. So to get the bespoke skills that we need is also a really big challenge for us. So we decided to look at school leavers and the options for apprenticeships. Now, for those of you who don't know what an apprenticeship is, that basically is on-the-job training. So it's literally, we've got these 3, these are our 3 apprentices that we recruited last year. They all do very different skills. As you can see, they're doing different parts of the research business, but also college course. So they're working with us 4 days a week and 1 day at college. But they're very hands-on as well in the business. So Matt, for example, he's offering frontline support to our 200-seat communication centre and 60 office staff. So fantastic, really doing great stuff for the business, fully integrated. Now, I couldn't obviously bring the 3 with me, although I think they would have loved the pubs. But I did think it'd be quite worthwhile just showing you a little clip of their views and from their perspective of how an apprenticeship works.
I considered a career in IT, accountancy or tourism and began looking at university courses in those areas. But in the end I decided to take up an apprenticeship in IT. One of the main reasons I chose the apprenticeship was due to the earn while you learn aspect of that career path. The specific qualifications that I would get would give me a great platform to build my career on.
So when I was looking into a career in market research, I learned it's a really dynamic industry. And when I joined, it's possible it's been even more varied than I imagined. So one minute I could be making some show cards, testing a questionnaire or checking some verbatim.
When I first started as an apprentice scriptwriter, I did a lot of scripting, punching, sample preparation and checking of final scripts. Over time I developed the knowledge and skills to be able to amend data and provide market research execs and our clients with regular updates. When I first started, I hid behind emails. I was not confident to communicate with colleagues. Now I make an effort to be more involved on a face-to-face basis. I've come a long way in terms of project management and I'm now more proficient in Excel.
Surprisingly, the biggest benefit about the course I'm studying at Canterbury College is it fits so well with my daily job. There's a module which covers using the phone, which fits really well with my day on reception. There's also a presentation module which links perfectly when I'm writing a presentation or a report.
So as you can see there's huge confidence and communication challenges to be had. And you can probably guess who's got the overconfidence and who's lacking the confidence there. But they've come on a long, long way, and how we boosted their confidence, and this is their first job in an office environment, so how we supported them, and Jack alluded to it there, was we actually put them on reception 1 day a week as well, so they did their normal day-to-day duties as well, but they had that experience of meeting visitors, fielding telephone calls, and it goes to say it really did help, because they did used to hide a lot behind their email. So the benefits as an employer have been huge, to be honest. Touching on the future-proofing, it's been fantastic to be able to share those 30-odd years of experience. We're getting far more bespoke skills now. And it's also freeing up the senior team as well, because I think, they need to be focusing on the more challenging and complex issues. But also, I'll be blunt, it's a fantastic way to raise our own business and industry as well, from a PR perspective. So earlier in the summer, when we were celebrating 30 years, we actually had a visit from the Countess of Wessex. For those of you who may not know who she is or not recognise her, she's the Queen's daughter-in-law, and she's a big advocate of getting young people back into business as well. So it was great to have her endorsement and for her to come down and talk with our apprentices and hear what they had been working on. And last but not least, and it's probably the elephant in the room, if you like, but it's also the fact that it's a worthwhile investment. It's, there's funding opportunities, and also the training is provided as well. So obviously we do employ them, they are paid, but I can really worthwhile recommend it, and we're actually looking at taking on more apprentices next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. And to me, it does make complete business sense to employ junior school leavers to do some of the project management things, particularly if you're getting government grants to help you with that. And I mean, the earlier session, I know we talked about how you motivate high flyers, but if you're getting some junior school leavers to do some of the project work, that means, as you say, that seniors can then concentrate on the more sort of varied and strategic projects. So thank you. Emily's come up to the stage. If you'd like to ask her any questions at the end, that would be great.
So final learning from the project was around mentoring. So one of the challenges that people in the industry have is just understanding how they can navigate their career paths. There's lots of challenges, there's lots of things that get in the way. Oh, okay, we've got someone else who's got something to say about that.
I think the jig is up on the interruption, so I'll just sashay up to the front here. I'm Kristen Luck. I'm a sales and marketing strategy consultant now, but I also, in all my spare time, run a little group called Women in Research, which has expanded exponentially over the last few years. We now have over 4,000 members across 4 continents. A few years ago, I started what was the industry's first one-to-one mentoring program, where we match senior-level women with women coming up in the industry. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about mentoring programs. That they're expensive, that they're hard to set up. I will say the first year we ran the program, it was a bit of a junk show. We learned a lot from our mistakes, and it was challenging and quite frankly a huge time suck for me. So I've spent a lot of time over the last few years really refining the program, and I'm thrilled to say that our engagement rates are really high, and we've had some great success stories that I'm going to share 2 of them with you this morning. I also want to say that I think there's a lot of debate and discussion about the value of mentoring. I think a lot of people feel, oh, well, if you have a supervisor or a boss, like they serve as a mentor. And I think in some special cases, yes, that does happen organically. But I also think sometimes as a supervisor, you sort of have competing priorities. You have a responsibility to the firm you're working for, and in many cases, you sort of have your own best interests at heart as well. And so you may not give someone who's reporting to you the best career advice that might actually further advance their career. I also think mentoring is a two-way street, and I'll read an example of that, where oftentimes the mentees are providing the mentors with some career guidance and assistance as well. So I have two success stories I wanted to share with you, and these mentors and mentees in the program, although it's a confidential program, very kindly agreed to let me share their names because they've had such great experiences. So the first is a pair that are based in Los Angeles. Shanna Savis is the mentee, and Tracy Castle, who's the Global Consumer Insights Head for Activision, is the mentor. And this is a quote from Shanna. I was having a lot of difficulty landing an entry-level job within the market research industry, and Tracy really guided and coached me throughout the whole job hunt and interview process. And I want to say, I think this is a very important thing about mentoring, and something that was alluded to earlier, which is there's many people that are interested in the industry and literally cannot break into it. So to provide a forum, for people that don't have access to someone already in the industry is really, really important. And Shanna goes on to say, I'm proud to announce that starting on September 28th, I will be working on-site at Facebook headquarters as a Nielsen research analyst. I am so, so, so excited about this new chapter in my life. I saw that Women in Research will be having an event at Facebook headquarters tomorrow, which we did last Monday in Menlo Park. And I'm so bummed that I start there just the week after. Either way, I plan to be an active member of the San Francisco Wire chapter, and I would love to help plan events for mixers in Northern California. Because I need to find some solid female friends up north. And then the second quote I wanted to read from you is from Sherry Binky at ORC. She couldn't be at the conference today. Sherry was the head of business development at ORC for almost 20 years. She just got out of the business last year, but she's been one of our more active mentors. She's actually mentored 3 different women in the program. And I thought this quote was really illuminating. Sherry said, being involved as a mentor made me think of my personal journey in the industry, which started 30 years ago. I was mentored by the late Elaine Friedman, the CEO of Friedman Marketing, an amazing entrepreneur. Friedman Marketing, one of the largest U.S. field agencies, was sold to Starch, Inra Hooper, now known as GFK. Elaine took me under her wing and gave me the confidence and a step-by-step education to which I set many of my career goals on. In reflection, it was an invaluable experience that I greatly appreciate. This is why it was important to give back through Wire. Through this organization, I'm pleased to have gotten the mentee of my dreams, Valerie Kroll. Val is an individual that I'm very proud of. Sorry, switching to page 2. When I met her, her goal was to move up the career ladder. She was seeking advice for both personal and professional growth. When I met Val, I immediately knew that our relationship would be a two-way street. And I think this is really important. I have learned that being a mentor refines my coaching and leadership skills outside of my company. It helps me bridge the gap between generations, plus learn about the different values and styles of our younger generation. It enables me to set a good example for my protege and makes me want to work even harder. Val's fresh perspective and always asking the why made me take a critical look at how I was leading and made me think of areas of how I could improve. Val is a solid researcher with incredible business acumen. She started on the supplier side and then moved to the client side a few years later. She was promoted 3 times in less than 5 years and most recently moved from her present job in Chicago to New York City to run a digital research arm for a large financial institution. Kristen, I have learned so much from being a part of Wire, and just think, I am the mentor. So, mentoring works both ways.
Kristen, please do come up to the stage. And I know that one of the issues that Kristen has had is finding mentors. So if any of you out there would be interested in being a mentor, I'm sure she would absolutely love to talk to you. I mean, I couldn't agree more, actually. Obviously, as a recruitment consultant, I talk a lot about the confusion, and there is a huge amount of confusion in the industry about how to progress, what job titles mean. I mean, I don't know how many job titles you've come across, but there seem to be hundreds. And a lot of them are very meaningless. How do you get to those roles? So certainly things like mentoring is a very good way of helping people progress through the industry. David, would you like to come back up, and then we can I hope some of you have got some questions for our wonderful panel. I'm going to kick off with one while you're thinking. So I've touched on the fact that we really need you to participate and help. We don't want to come back in a year and nothing has been done. We'd love you to go out, visit universities, take part in mentoring, think about setting up apprenticeship schemes, all of the things we'd love you to take part in. But if I sort of said to the panel, of all the things that we've discussed, or indeed any other ideas, what is the one thing that you think we should be doing that will make a difference, that will mean we'll come back in a year and this industry is a more attractive one to work in? So let's start with you.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, Kristen, because you've got the mic.
You know, I mean, I think the perception for a lot of these programs is that they're incredibly time-consuming, that they're expensive. I haven't found that to be the case. I mean, I think if you have a little bit of time, certainly a mentoring program doesn't cost anything to set up, and I'm happy, always happy to share what I've learned with other organizations or with people in the industry. If you're interested in setting up a mentoring scheme, even within your own company, I'm happy to share the learnings that we've gained from WIRE, because it's definitely been a journey. You know, I would love to challenge everyone in this room to donate just a couple hours of your time every month. Our mentoring program maybe takes 2 hours a month of time. It's nothing, really, in the grand scheme of things. And the biggest, you know, barrier to expanding it, and Liz and Caroline and I were talking about this beforehand, is I just need to find more mentors. It's a peer-to-peer, it's a one-to-one matching program, which means for every woman that signs up for the program, I personally have to go out and find a mentor for them, which means I do a lot of begging. And I'd love to have more volunteers. So, you know, I think just donating a little bit of time every month, I think, would be invaluable to sort of moving us forward. Yeah.
Emily, what's the one thing that you think you would do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do graduate programs as well, but I would just say don't forget those 16 to 24-year-olds. Get them when they're just starting their careers, because all our apprentices, basically, they actively chose not to go to university purely because of the costs. But they're brilliant and fantastic. And, you know, if we hadn't have had an apprenticeship scheme, we wouldn't have known these great, fantastic people. So that'd be my thing.
Chris, would it be university visits by some chance?
Yeah, you probably know what I'm going to say. I think given how low down the consideration set, let's say, we are as an industry, we're just nowhere near the, you know, what students think they want to do with their, you know, professional lives. I really think that there's something that needs to be done with reaching out to some of the best universities in a more strategic and repeated fashion. So actually going back can have a really big impact as well. And I think probably more thought needs to be put into actually then closing the deal with some of those students. So if they're getting offered 45, 50 grand to start at Accenture or somewhere, you know, they're not going to want to be doing coding for 18 grand a year working on a tracker for the first 2 years of their 20s. So, yeah, it's complex, but I think university visits, yeah.
Matt?
I think for me, it's just being more mindful about what we're actually talking about when we go and see these people. You know, realistically, you think back to university, you listen to a career talk, you just kind of zone out. If somebody's going to stand in front of you and say, by the way, if you've got a maths degree, you don't have to be an accountant, you can work in market research. That's not going to get people excited at all. You know, kind of go back to that fantastic presentation we saw earlier about Generation Z. You know, research is uniquely bad at listening to its own research. You know, we've done so much research on millennials, that there's so much written about it. There's a Google Chrome extension which swaps millennials for snake people on any website you look at. You know, we are drowning in research about how to talk to young people, and yet we're not going out there and listening to that. You know, ultimately, I think if we're doing more interesting work and we're being bolder in the way we talk about it, and we actually listen to our own research about how to communicate it, I think a combination of those things will really kind of combine to make people excited and bring people to the industry.
Really good point. Caroline?
So I would just like us to tell our story in a more compelling and exciting way. So, like I said, you know, from the research programme, it's very clear we love what we do. What we're absolutely useless at is conveying that love for our roles more broadly. So I'd love that enthusiasm and that excitement to really come across with everybody that we speak to, not just potential talent, but also just the general public. One of the most depressing things that I find, and it's down on our stand, there's a little caricature that brings it to life, is how people are often embarrassed to say that they work in our industry. They invent different job titles to their mates. It's kind of that killer dinner party question, what do you do? And people are not proud to work in our industry, which is so frustrating when they're actually really enjoying the roles that they do. I'd kind of accept it a bit more if we were really grumpy and didn't like our jobs. So for me, it's that pride, it's that positivity and spreading the word.
David.
Well, with my Esomar council hat on, now Kristen's on the council as well, we're totally committed and have set up a work stream to make sure that we get more scalability in terms of the stuff we do with universities, so we can make that commitment. We will be going to more than half a dozen universities. That's a major plank in what we're going to do. Just from a personal standpoint, I've always found, as I've done stuff for the MRS and SMR, that if you're trying to get people to help, you get two kinds of people. It's people that look at the world in terms of, there's my work pile, and when I've got to the end of the work pile, I will then go over to the other pile and see whether I can do stuff for the industry. And that never happens. You never get to the end of the work pile. My advice would be, if you can do this, is you've got to deal off the top of the deck. You've got to wake up in the morning, you've got your work pile, and there'll be all sorts of things you've got to do there. But there's the kind of extracurricular, can I do some mentoring, can I go and visit a university pile? And every now and again, deal off the top of that deck, and then things things happen. And my third point would be, just to echo what has been said, the fundamental core skill sets we've got are really valued. When I've been involved, I get involved in university activities, and I want to get a team of people together to do things. And my first reflex is to turn to people that I know from market research, because they've got that skill set to deliver. So we really need the confidence in that, which is what Caroline is saying, and what Matt's saying as well, and try and get that over in a compelling way, because we've got a really powerful story, and we tend to just underachieve.
We've got 5 minutes left. Do you have a quick question? And then I'll throw it open to the audience. David, sorry.
Well,
that wasn't very clear.
I suppose my question would be, if we just quickly went along the panel, and if you were to just pick out one single thing, if you allowed that one message, we're supposed to be good at delivering the message. Can we sum up in one sentence exactly what that presentation was about? What one sentence would you sum up? What is your key thing that you'd each like to get across as part of this initiative?
So mine would be #get_involved. It's over to you. It's not going to change unless everybody at this Congress gets involved, gives a little bit of their time.
Matt?
Mine would be, just do things differently. Give us something exciting to talk about as an industry. It's as simple as that.
Chris?
A small amount of commitment from everybody in the room would make an enormous impact compared to where we are now. So visit the stand, please.
Emily?
I would say share the word that there's a role for everyone in research. We've been hearing a lot about getting broader skills in, so it really is from creative to analytical, so it really is something for everyone.
Kristen?
I'm going to say 1 hour a month. We all have 1 hour a month.
Okay, so who has some questions? Over here.
Thanks. I'm Jeff Lowe, Info Tools. I have an endorsement and I have a question. The endorsement is, back in the mid-80s, I was finishing my degree. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And this really cool dude came to talk to us from a market research agency. Now, market research wasn't that well known, but he got out the overhead projector, he put on some acetates and showed us some graphs, and I was in, and I'm still in the game now. So it really works. I endorse that.
It was the acetates, wasn't it?
It did it for me. And a question, given that we have learnt today, Kristen, that it is not going to be okay to ask about gender from now on, can I join WIRE?
Actually, we are a man-friendly group. We do have some men that come to each one of our events. In fact, if any of you know Josh Chasen from ComScore, he is a fan favorite at our New York events. He comes to everyone. And yes, one of the things that we're really looking at is how do we expand our mentoring program outside of being gender specific. And if any of you men in the room are interested in mentoring, I'm also happy to collaborate and work with you on finding either men or women that are coming up in the industry or looking to get into the industry to match you with. So please, if you're male, don't be shy about reaching out to me. And I'm definitely interested in expanding the program. What?
Meyer is on.
Yeah.
I think we've time for just one more question. Any other questions? Yeah, over here.
Thank you. I've got an observation and also a question. David, you and I go back a long way. I remember taking sandwich students from you in the mid to late 80s, which was a fantastic thing. Yeah. And some of those people who came and joined the company that I'd set up went on to be consumer research directors at Diageo and all sorts of things. So I think employers can do much more than they are currently doing to actually bring people in for internships, for experience at whatever level. The second thing is that I was asked by one of my kids' schools to go in and do a session at their career session, and it was just amazing. I mean, as you'd expect, kids knew nothing. They knew nothing about market research, but they were really fascinated. Now, I have a question. Is there some way that this initiative could get parents who work in the industry to do the same? Because actually, that is something that you can do very easily, and there's a lot of us. Yeah. And it's
very
like,
good point.
Yeah.
You know, so
get them even earlier.
Yeah. So
Love
actually,
it.
at the sixth form, when they're thinking about university and careers.
I agree. No, so on that, I mean, the bigger point about sandwich degrees, I think there are things, at least in the UK, changing about the idea, the introduction of the concept of degree apprenticeships and a revisiting of the whole idea of, the straightforward university entrance you do 3 years. So the degree apprenticeship idea is quite good. And if at the moment they're thinking around like the STEM subject, science and technology, if we extended that to, the creative industries and marketing and advertising, market research, so I think that's happening. And I'm sort of lobbying away in that sector. And you're right, it'd be a great idea. Let's just get the parents go. I've done one or two things going and talking to schools, and it's really quite an eye-opener, isn't it, that really how much they value it. So we'll put that on the things to do list.
We're out of time, Caroline.
Yeah, just got one final thought. I've kind of said it already, but it's #get_involved, and it's come and see us on the stand, come and have a conversation. We've got a project blog that can keep you up to date with everything. It can give you the findings from the research program. But the final thought is, just get involved.
Right. Well, thank you very much. If I could formally thank Liz and Caroline and Matt and Chris and Emily and Kristen for their contribution. You can see what I was saying at the beginning about the choreography involved to get all this to happen. So thank you so much. And if you wanted to go downstairs and follow the discussion on the stand, that would be excellent. And there's all sorts of ways you can keep in touch on Twitter and